Welcome back to The Explainer. Now, if you live in Nigeria, you already know the everyday pulling your hair out frustration of bureaucratic paperwork. You know the drill, right? Carrying a giant folder full of documents just to prove who you are, filling out the exact same forms over and over again, and dealing with systems that just completely refuse to talk to each other. It's exhausting. Well, a major legislative shift just happened, and it's designed to completely rewire how identity works in the country. Today, we're breaking down the newly signed National Identity Management Commission Act 2026, or, just the NIMC Act 2026. This isn't just a boring update to government paperwork. This is a foundational, ground-up change to how you're going to interact with the economy, the government, and the digital world. Seriously, think about it for a second. How many ID cards are crammed in your wallet right now? You've probably got a driver's license, a voter's card, a bank card, maybe a national ID slip, a workplace ID, a passport tucked away in a drawer somewhere, and probably a gym card from 2018 you are definitely never going to use again. It's a highly fragmented, super confusing system of multiple identity registries, and none of them communicate with each other. This incredibly disjointed reality is exactly the problem this new legal framework aims to fix, once and for all. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the new digital era, move on to the mandatory NIN rule, check out your new multipurpose card, discuss data protection, look at the strict new fraud penalties, and finally, how this all builds a trusted digital economy. Section 1. A new digital era, leaving 2007 behind. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive shift we're talking about. For nearly 2 decades, Nigeria's identity system was stuck operating under the outdated NIMC Act of 2007. I mean, think about the world in 2007. We didn't have widespread smartphones, there was no mobile banking, no decentralized digital public infrastructure. That old act left Nigeria with fragmented, siloed biometric databases scattered all over the place across different agencies. If your bank needed your details, they had their own system. The Electoral Commission, they had another entirely separate one. Well, that era is officially over. On June 26, 2026, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu signed the NIMC Act 2026 into law, completely throwing out the 2007 legislation. The 2026 Act mandates real-time synchronization. It transforms NIMS from this passive administrative registry into a unified digital trust authority that actually harmonizes all these disconnected databases into one cohesive ecosystem. To actually pull this off, the law introduces some highly technical but absolutely critical changes. The Act officially designates NIMC as the root certification authority for Nigeria's public key infrastructure, or PKI. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of dense legal and tech jargon, but just think of it simply as the ultimate digital padlock. It means NIMC now basically holds the cryptographic keys to trust in the entire digital economy. Every single digital signature, every secure transaction, and every online identity verification will now be securely authenticated by this central authority. It's a massive upgrade for securing the system against impersonation and cyber fraud. Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds. The mandatory NIN rule, one person, one identity. This brings us to the most direct, day-to-day impact this law is going to have on you as a citizen. The centralization of all these services around your national identification number, your NIN. The whole framework now operates on this newly codified philosophy, which President Tinubu summarized perfectly. Quote, one person, one identity, one number. End quote. That is now the absolute law of the land. It's explicitly designed to eliminate duplicate identities, wipe out those fake ghost profiles, and create a single, standardized way for you to prove exactly who you are anywhere in the country. Because of this new rule, your NIN is literally no longer optional. It is legally mandated as the absolute gateway to essential services. You're going to need it for passport applications, opening bank accounts, registering to vote, filing tax returns, managing your pension, and, this is a really big one, applying for consumer credit. From the perspective of financial institutions, places like the CRC Credit Bureau, this is a real game changer. Before this, mismatched names and ghost borrowers artificially inflated default rates and made lenders way too cautious to hand out money. But now, by tying everything to a verified NIN, credit decisions become much faster and cheaper. Ultimately, that unlocks easier access to loans and massively boosts financial inclusion for the average Nigerian. Section 3. Your general multipurpose card, the ultimate tool. So how are you supposed to actually carry this unified identity around with you? Well, the Act formally introduces the General Multi-Purpose Card, or the GMP. Now, this isn't just another piece of useless plastic to cram in your wallet. It's designed to be the ultimate versatile identity credential. Over time, as interoperability between all these government agencies actually improves, this single card is intended to reduce and eventually completely replace the need for you to carry around multiple separate government-issued cards. The official tagline they're using for this rollout is "one card, multiple possibilities." And honestly, it really hits the nail on the head regarding their ambition here. Whether you are voting in a local election, accessing a government social intervention program, or just verifying your identity at a commercial bank, this card brings the whole shebang together in one secure, verifiable place, both physically in your hand and digitally. Section 4. Protecting your personal data, sovereignty and security. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Centralizing all this highly sensitive biometric and personal data of millions of people into a single institutional system creates a massive target for hackers. We've seen past data leaks happen, and cyber threats are very real right now. So we really have to ask the critical question here: who is actually protecting this massive database? And what happens if the system is breached? Well, the 2026 Act takes this concern head-on, recognizing that just slapping severe penalties on people isn't enough to reverse the damage of a data leak once your info is already out there. When signing the legislation, the president made a very direct commitment to the public, stating, "I will not allow the data of Nigerians to be treated carelessly." Now, that wasn't just a political soundbite. It was actually tied to specific, brand new statutory safeguards written directly into the text of the law. Now, what's really interesting about this is exactly how they are protecting your rights. The law implements 3 distinct safeguards. First, the NIMC Act is now strictly aligned with the Nigeria Data Protection Act of 2023. Second, and this is huge, it codifies that your personal information absolutely cannot be accessed or verified without your explicit consent. And third, it champions data sovereignty. NIMC is legally required to store and manage all of its infrastructure within Nigeria's domestic borders. That drastically reduces exposure to foreign jurisdictions and unauthorized cross-border data flows. Section 5. Strict penalties for fraud, ending the era of light fines. Of course, rules are only as good as the people enforcing them, right? Well, the new law doesn't mess around anymore. 5 years. That is now the absolute minimum jail term for identity-related offenses, unauthorized access, and data breaches. This is a massive shift away from those mild administrative risk slaps we saw in the past. It creates a very real custodial deterrent. Furthermore, the financial penalties for noncompliance and fraud have seen a staggering 100-fold increase compared to that old 2007 law. For corporate entities that act negligently with your data, they are looking at massive fines, starting at 20 million naira. The government is essentially building a massive financial wall to keep out identity theft and multiple registrations. And NIMC itself? They are no longer just a passive database administrator sitting in an office. Under this act, they now have serious law enforcement teeth. They possess court-authorized powers to investigate, search, seize evidence, decrypt data, and actually make arrests. Legal experts have pointed out that this is a huge leap forward for Nigeria's criminal justice system. By moving away from a reliance on contested confessions, this empowers authorities to use scientific certainty, authenticated identity, and electronic records to track sophisticated transnational networks and support true evidence-based justice. In fact, this kind of database integration was already recently used to successfully identify and arrest suspected terrorists who were returning from a foreign pilgrimage. Section 6. A trusted digital economy, the big picture. Let's zoom out for just a second here. Why is all this massive structural reform happening right now? So the crucial point is this number right here, $1 trillion. This new trusted digital public infrastructure is not just some standard IT upgrade for the government. It is a critical foundational pillar in Nigeria's highly ambitious macroeconomic target to become a $1 trillion economy. You simply cannot build a thriving, modern digital economy where e-commerce, digital lending, and foreign investment actually flourish without having absolute trust and identity. And the timeline for all this is moving really fast. The act was signed in June 2026. Right now, as we speak, there is an ongoing, massive grassroots campaign taking place across Nigeria's 8,809 political wards. Backed by the World Bank's $430 million Identity for Development project, the target is to enroll 180 million Nigerians. They are specifically ensuring that vulnerable, rural, and diaspora populations are not left behind. And that's because the presidential directive is crystal clear, a strict deadline of the end of 2026 for universal enrollment in the National Identity Database. So, to wrap this all up, the 2026 NMIC Act is actively transitioning Nigeria from a highly fragmented past into a streamlined digital future. It promises easier access to credit, better national security, and an end to that absurd clutter in your wallet, all backed by some pretty powerful new legal safeguards. But at the same time, it undeniably centralizes immense data power in a world where cyber threats are constantly evolving. So, we want to leave you with this to consider. Will a unified digital identity unlock your financial potential, or do you feel the data privacy risks of a centralized system are still just too great to ignore? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.